Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, which, as many of you have already guessed, is a real doozy. That's because Hollywood served up a pretty tasteless and bland Thanksgiving dinner, allowing Netflix to crash the party with their, I say, sweet potato casserole. It was no mystery, in my opinion, as to why Hollywood's fare bombed. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it down below. Streamers, in fact, overall ruled the holiday weekend, playing very aggressively. Let's discuss. It was as contentious as many people's Thanksgiving weekends or Thanksgiving family dinners. Hilarious. All right, so first off, not only did Hollywood serve up a tasteless and bland Thanksgiving feast, but even worse, they refused to acknowledge that things fizzled in the kitchen, insisting that their movies are delicious. You eat them. They're not delicious. Strange World in particular is truly awful, and we'll focus on that film specifically in a minute. Oh boy, will we talk about that movie. That could be the movie that causes a hard reset at Disney Animation. I'll be curious to see, if Bob Iger, he's there to fix things, and I see something that needs fixing. But Devotion and The Menu are clearly streaming movies, while awards contenders, Hollywood in the trades and people in the industry are like, why does nobody want to watch our movies? And it's like, have you really kind of sat outside yourself and your own personal biases? Hollywood is often accused of living in a bubble. And when Hollywood looks at what they served for Thanksgiving this year and says, it looks good to me, well, that's because they're in a bubble. Because this stuff is bad. All right, so The Fabelmans. The Fabelmans. Wow. I still can't believe it. I mean, you would think, some people are still saying they think that's an awards frontrunner. I mean, if they want to get made fun of, if Hollywood wants to have another discussion where they're out of touch, go ahead. Keep up with this movie. But I would drop it like a hot potato. I don't even think it's worth watching at all, but I definitely think if anyone's going to watch it, they're going to stream it. And then they're going to scratch their head and be like, why is everyone in the industry saying this is an awards contender? It's another Hollywood ego stroke that has no appeal to mainstream moviegoers. And I think that Steven Spielberg, even more than being in a bubble, I think that, everybody's kind of been there. A story that's interesting to you isn't necessarily interesting to anybody else, or much less, enough people to sell millions of dollars worth of tickets. He might have been able to forgive his mother for what she did, but I don't really think that she's a very likable character, the way the role is written. It's told from the perspective of the son, so it doesn't really explain from her perspective why she did what she did, which I think would have maybe made her more sympathetic. Also, I don't think Michelle Williams' performance is very sympathetic. Well, good. Michelle Williams is a great actress. I was talking to a friend of mine who said that Michelle Williams, while an incredibly good actor, does have a little bit of a likability problem. And I thought that was interesting. I'm curious. What do you think? Also, it's been marketed as like a family movie-going experience. I mean, Spielberg typically makes family movies. It's about a family. It's about his family. But when you see the movie, you're like, wow, this is not for families. I certainly wouldn't recommend anybody watch it as their big family Thanksgiving meal unless everybody wants to start side-eyeing everybody else in the family. And I don't think the Jesus gag, by the way, is going to go over as well with a lot of people, as well as probably when Steven Spielberg told his close friends. I'm like, whoa, it's like sometimes think of the audience that you're playing to, Steven. Think of that. And also, as I've said before, and I did my mini review in a previous Movie Math, you don't learn anything about Steven Spielberg as a filmmaker. Some of the tricks, the film tricks that he came up with as a teenager are the most interesting part of the film. You're like, oh, that's cool. Are we going to do any more of that? And they're like, no. You want to hear more about what his mom did? And you're like, I feel uncomfortable with this situation. All right, anyway. Timothée Chalamet, here's another awards contender. Timothée Chalamet gambled that he was a hot enough actor to sell a hot cannibal movie and discovered that he is not, and his It Boy status therefore took a bit of a hit. You got to be careful when you're gambling with your star factor. I don't know how much Timothée Chalamet had to begin with. I think it was a lot of smoke and mirrors coming out of Dune. But he just really underscored that nobody actually particularly wants to pay to see Timothée Chalamet no matter what the project. That's what a movie star is. But to be fair, I think it would be hard for anyone to sell this movie. I mean, even Hannibal Lecter, right, had the decency to enjoy his meals off camera, and he didn't make it his whole identity. Also, Hannibal Lecter was a big fancy cannibal, while Timothy Chalamet is playing a camping cannibal. I mean, nobody wanted to watch Frances McDormand poop in a bucket either, and I think the films are actually quite similar. Again, Hollywood. I mean, that's not even, you don't even have to look that far back into Hollywood history to be like, wow, no one wants to see that. Why would I make a cannibal version of it? Then, while the movie theaters were serving up turkeys, not the good kind, although, as you know, I like the sides. But anyway, streaming services aggressively offered up a feast that could not only be enjoyed at home, but all weekend long. You gotta do your cooking and your eating. You gotta do your shopping. You gotta do your holiday decorating. And, you know, who has time to go carve out going to a movie theater, going out to a movie theater, and just sitting in a theater for 2 to 3 hours? You can pause this other online content. You can, eat at home. You can enjoy some leftovers. It's just easier to fit into your schedule. You could start it at 11 o'clock at night when you should be going to bed, but it's a holiday. So why not stay up and watch some of this new content? What did you do? What did you do this weekend? Especially with COVID numbers rising yet again. And I know right now some of you are typing, I can't believe you brought that up, Grace. And that's what's going on. No one wants to talk about it. People are like, what COVID numbers? Well, everybody gets COVID again. So I think that's affecting some movie going. So not only did Netflix drop mega hit on Wednesday, I can't wait to see those numbers as early as next week with Netflix's charts. Remember, Netflix is just a week behind. But Andor wrapped its first season with all 12 episodes available to binge, and they played it for free or on other streaming services like Hulu over the weekend. Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special also dropped on Disney+. That's only 45 minutes, but that could have been you going to a movie. And then Chippendales also started on Hulu. That's very good. It's got a lot of Chippendales in it. It was very good though. They got me with the third episode that was I'll watch 3 in a row. And then they were like, no, that comes out next week, Grace. And I'm like, I can't wait. And in the new age of counter programming, this is fascinating to me. On Tuesday, Black Adam, The Woman King, Lyle Crocodile, and then awards films, Tar, Armageddon Time, Triangle of Sadness, and then whatever the heck this is from Russell Crowe. I watched that trailer. I still don't know what it is. I was like, is that Liam Hemsworth? Did he lose a bet? All this dropped on digital. All of it! And again, that is very aggressive and something we haven't seen before to this degree. The majority of movie theaters simply could not compete with all this new content that's cheaper, more convenient, and more flexible. It's dark days for the movie-going experience. And again, if you clean your theater, I think I might be a little bit more excited to go there. Now, before we do a deep dive into A Tale of Two Movies, Huge Bomb Strange World, and Sparkling Diamond Knives Out, as I said, a lot of people are starting their shopping right now, in stores and online. And on that note, why don't you head over to the Beyond the Trailer store, where the Movie Math merch has just dropped. That's right, it's finally here. Movie Math merch 2. Awesome designs, which I did in collaboration with the CRP group, which a BTT member of our community is somebody at that company. So it was really great to work on these designs. And they're available, both designs are available on a plethora of merch. We've got classic favorites like t-shirts and hoodies in multiple colors. Make sure you check out the different colors. Mugs and blankets. I know a lot of you liked the blankets last time. But also fun new merch. I worked really hard on this, so I hope you like this. Cell phone cases for iPhones and Samsung, both. I put the iPhone picture up and someone's like, where's the Samsung cases? I'm like, click through to the site. They're both there, and they're for various models. You just click on it, and it'll bring up your, you just click, they have like tons of phone models available for whatever generation that you have. Notebooks. I know a lot of you like the notebooks. Tote bags. I'm particularly happy with the way the tote bags turned out. Desk mats, which I thought was a cool thing to offer. And then coasters. Coasters. One coaster at a time. I just want you to make sure that's clear from the illustration. And I think that's pretty awesome to stuff in someone's Christmas stocking. Everybody needs a stocking stuffer. They're so hard to find. Here you go. Get something for you. Get something for a loved one. And by the way, 15% off is going on right now through the end of the day tomorrow, Cyber Monday. It'll stop at midnight Eastern Standard Time. So that's 15% off with code BTT Black Friday. Use that at checkout. So go to GraceRandolphStore.com. The link is down below, pinned to the top of the comment section. Go over there, browse, take a look around. Again, I was really happy with the different variety of merchandise I was able to offer this time. And I hope you like it. And thank you again to CRP Group for those incredible designs. All right, so wow, I told you Strange World was going to bomb. I told you. I was like, that's going to bomb. I said it would be a company redefining flop. And it looks like it is. And it's not because of the LGBT co-lead, but just because it's awful. It's awful. It's just awful. LGBT content can do quite well at the box office. Here's some examples. Although I have seen online comments against many groups, not just the LGBT community, but different ethnicities, women. Oh, it's rough for everybody out there. And they're just awful. Wait till we talk about The Woman King over on iTunes. I was appalled this weekend. Appalled. Is it Russia and China stirring up hate across the globe with fake social media accounts, something they've both been caught doing? Are people just maybe really upset due to economic hardships? Or is this just what the world is really like? I mean, it's scary stuff. It's really bad. It's awful. It's awful. All right, back to Strange World, though. That movie. So, I mean, that's going on in society for sure, and it's a problem, and we're trying to figure out what's going on here. But because, you know, some people are like, oh, that's just the way it's always been. But diverse content has done well. So that's not true. So let's try and figure this out. But it's really toxic out there. But that's not why Strange World failed. It's just old-fashioned horrible. It's the animated version of the Disney Plus Cheaper by the Dozen movie from earlier this year. Remember that? Oh, that was rough too. The kind of checking all the boxes representation that doesn't do anybody any good. It has a B Cinema score. That is the lowest ever for a Disney animated movie. Ever. Oh, ever. Home on the Range got an A-. I mean, wow. But again, maybe people are real. I mean, it's really bad. I think a B, quite frankly, is generous. And Disney Animation's worst opening weekend ever for Thanksgiving. And by the way, they're supposed to own Thanksgiving. Demo numbers were fine, although for a movie with a lot of characters of color, you'd think the audience would have been a bit more balanced. You might be like, that looks like 50% to me, Grace, you know, 48% Caucasian and then 52% other ethnicities. But it should have been, you know, I told you, a movie that really appeals to multiple demographics. The Caucasian numbers are supposed to be low 40s, high 30s. That's like what the original Black Panther was. That means you're getting everybody. I mean, look, black audiences were not into this movie at all, despite, you know, several characters from that community. This has been a truly horrible year for Disney Animation and Pixar, the kind that should lead to serious corporate soul searching. I know some of you are like, that's an oxymoron, Grace. It's not. You know, every company has a soul. In fact, Bob Iger, when he was warning the Disney board about Bob Chapek, said he's going to damage the soul of this company. And on that note, early last week when Disney switched back Bob's, I said the second place Iger should take a hard look after fixing the theme parks. That's definitely priority number one. But is Jennifer Lee and Pete Docter. I don't think that, I mean, if they stick around, those two and Kathleen Kennedy, those divisions all need new leadership. They're screaming out for new leadership. I mean, it's ridiculous at this point. Some in the industry and in the trades are saying, well, you know what? At least Disney did right and put Strange World in theaters instead of sending it directly to Disney Plus. Who cares? It's unwatchable no matter where you put it. It's not going to find an audience on Disney Plus. This isn't going to be a situation where in a few weeks you're like, oh, wow, everybody's like, this movie was great. Why didn't we see it in theaters? They're going to be like, this is truly bad. People will turn it off. You won't finish it. It's worse than Disenchanted. And that's saying something. Disney has a real quality issue right now. For sure. For sure. Can Bob Iger fix it? How long will it take him to fix it? Let's find out. How much crap will we have to sit through because we love the Disney logo at the beginning of it? Let's find out. I mean, at least they've got Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which just fell 31% in its third weekend and easily won the holiday weekend thanks to no real competition, at least at the multiplex. However, there ain't no way this sequel is going to be able to come close to the domestic total of the first film. No way. Not going to come close. Not going to come close. That's a little bit disheartening. It now has 3 weeks until Avatar 2, Disney's Christmas movie. Black Panther was its Thanksgiving movie. This is its Christmas movie. And Avatar 2 is expected to open about the same. But at this rate, I don't even think Black Panther Wakanda Forever will get to 500 million. I don't. But it should be able to beat out the MCU's other 2022 movies, so it's got that going for it domestically. Worldwide, I think it's going to be a photo finish with Multiverse of Madness. I think it's going to be a photo finish. We'll see where it ends up. I would think that it would be done. I would think anybody who wanted, I mean, movies are very front loaded these days, but I don't know. I mean, like, Multiverse of Madness and Jurassic World Dominion went like, they kept going far longer than anybody would have thought. You're like, they're still alive. I can't believe it. It's amazing. They're still crawling ahead at the box office. So let's see. Again, 3 weeks till Avatar 2. But no wonder Jimmy Cameron is sweating bullets over there. Whew, he's looking at this marketplace and he's like, oh man, I'm about to embarrass myself real bad. Let's see what excuses he comes up with and who he blames. I think he's going to blame Disney for releasing a very similar movie about blue underwater people a month beforehand. And I think he'd have a somewhat fair argument there to a degree. Let's see. I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm going to be seeing it soon. But it's about a $4 upcharge to see Avatar 2 in 3D. So let's see if that saves the day. Once again, like with the original, that makes a difference on everybody's ticket. But the first Avatar brought in the 3D age, and then everyone rejected the 3D age. So I don't know if they're going to go back. I mean, it's a lot of, Jimmy Cameron's asking people to go back on a lot of things. All right, then of course, there's Knives Out, Glass Onion. Is this a game changer? We will see. It returns to the Thanksgiving weekend, 3 years later, bookending the pandemic. The first was a big hit, particularly for a smaller film. Perfect counter-programming to Frozen 2. And as I've said before, Pumpkin Spice the movie, the ideal Thanksgiving film. Made for just $40 million, it was a big enough of a splash for Netflix to scoop it up, which has a number of people in the industry and the media pretty miffed. I saw a lot of really snippy comments on social media over the weekend with people saying that Netflix as a streamer had stolen what is these days a rare box office hit franchise away from the multiplex. I'm like, I don't know, Netflix paid a ridiculous amount of money for it. Maybe Lionsgate shouldn't have allowed it to get stolen. We're just trying to get the whole company purchased right now. I mean, that's what's going on. Lionsgate would love for someone to purchase them outright. They're probably like, Netflix should have bought the whole company. And sure enough, on just about 600 screens, the same as The Fabelmans, by the way, where Knives Out, Glass Onion destroyed Steven Spielberg's movies per theater average. I mean, it wasn't even close. Netflix's Glass Onion was able to beat out almost all the big studio pictures. Isn't that incredible? But it's a really good movie. It's like a really good movie. I didn't even like the first one, and this one I think is fantastic. Now, Glass Onion is supposed to disappear from theaters on Tuesday. So if you're like, oh man, maybe I should see it in theaters, you better hurry. And then it will return exclusively on Netflix December 23rd. But there's some chatter, or really, I think really at this point, wishful thinking, that Netflix might make a deal to keep it in theaters a bit longer. I don't know. It depends if Netflix wants to get into the movie business and just kind of turn into a studio like everybody else. And I think maybe why not? We're going to discuss that right now. But I think maybe an extra week. I don't think they're going to keep it in theaters until December 23rd. But it depends if they can get the screens. But I think there's not a lot of stuff playing right now. And I think theaters would be like, please let me keep this movie. It's the only thing bringing people into my company, my establishment. So even if a deal doesn't materialize because it's so last minute, even if Knives Out, Glass Onion does disappear from theaters on Tuesday, I think this is going to make a difference going forward with Knives Out 3 and maybe stuff like Extraction 2. The bigger Netflix movies might play in theaters longer, and movie theaters who used to blacklist Netflix movies because of their very small theatrical windows, well, as I said, these days, theaters just want people to come to the movies, and the studios ain't cutting it. Now, and they're not going to be loyal to the studios because they're not giving them fare that sells tickets and sells concessions. Now, speaking of loyalty, in the past, Netflix has felt the loyalty to their subscribers because they didn't want their subscribers to feel like they weren't being treated, they didn't want them to feel like second-class citizens. So they're like, we can't put a movie into theaters for more than a week before we put it on the streaming service, which is what got them in trouble with the movie theaters. But with Netflix churning out so much content and the subscribers not loyal to them anymore with all this churn, well then why not have two tiers of movies? The movies that go right to the streaming service, like Enola Holmes 2, that's a streaming movie. No disrespect, but that School of Good and Evil, these are streaming movies, and that's fine. That's fine. And then there are those that maybe spend a month at the multiplex. Which upcoming Netflix movies do you think or recent ones do you think could pull a Glass Onion? I'd say right now for the upcoming films, and Netflix plays it pretty close to the vest. You often don't know what's coming out on Netflix until like a month or so in advance. But I would say Extraction 2, as I mentioned, Beverly Hills Cop 4, with almost everybody returning. That should be in theaters for sure. I hope it looks good. I hope it's good. And then maybe Maestro, the Bradley Cooper Leonard Bernstein biopic, with Carey Mulligan as well. That could be pretty good in theaters. Maybe. I'd have to see the trailer. But imagine if Knives Out had had an actual wide release too, by the way. I mean, a lot of smaller theaters couldn't even get the movie because Netflix made it, part of the deal was that it was exclusive to the 3 big chains. But if it had played in like 2,000 to 4,000 theaters, an actual wide release, I think it would have beaten Strange World. And I think Netflix obviously realizes that. And they're like, what could we do? It might be dark days for us on our streaming service, but maybe we could go kick everybody. That would be like really deja. That would be like Bizarro Hollywood, right? They're like, who's the #1 studio in theaters? Netflix. Well, everybody else is doing better on streaming. Bizarre. Netflix is still doing well on streaming. Don't cry for Netflix. All right, so as for streaming, Nielsen usually updates its charts on Thursday, which of course was Thanksgiving. But I guess nobody at the office could be bothered to click publish on Friday or Saturday. So we'll have to revisit Nielsen next week when they get the new charts up. I'm sure they'll probably go up on Monday. So maybe we'll do 2 next week, next Movie Math to catch up. But over on Netflix's charts, theirs come out on Tuesdays. So theirs were available. And also I think Netflix would have released them no matter what. So anyway, speaking of not wanting to work on a holiday though, Jason Momoa couldn't be bothered to appear at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I was watching the parade in person, and the float went by, and I was like, oh, wow, Slumberland, because my family had been thinking of watching that the other night. Well, we didn't. But anyway, I was like, is that Jason Momoa on the front of that float? And my friend was like, what else? Of course, what else is Jason Momoa going to do? Of course he's going to promote that movie. And then when I rewatched the parade, that's what I always do. I watch it in person, and then I rewatch the broadcast so you can see everything at 34th Street. And I was like, that's not Jason Momoa. How did he not show up? And it's reflected in the viewing numbers. He also spent the entire press tour talking about DC. But anyway, his new movie couldn't beat out Lindsay Lohan's Christmas movie in its second week. That's nuts. And both of their numbers are not great. So, I mean, it's not like Lindsay Lohan should be super proud of this victory. Jason Momoa and Lindsay Lohan should look at each other and be like, I can't believe we're peers. And I'd be like, I'm nervous about this too, particularly for Aquaman 2. Florence Pugh, though, she has an awards bait flick, The Wonder, and that did even less viewership. So that just kind of came and went. But Florence Pugh will be okay. She's Black Widow now. Over in series, The Crown Season 5 managed to hold off $18.99, from the creators of Dark. So that's pretty impressive, actually, especially because The Crown is in its second week on this chart. They both did very solid numbers, though. They aren't phenomenons. It's not like they're produced by Ryan Murphy or Shonda Rhimes. But they're solid. They're very solid. I hope that $18.99 isn't expensive. I think The Crown, again, it has just one more season to go. It's good. But I'll be curious to see if they do another round of $18.99. And it didn't really totally take off. I think Wednesday is going to be like a Ryan Murphy level success. I hope so. I trended all day on Wednesday and a little bit on Thursday. And I was very happy to see that. It deserves it. I love that show. And it looks like it's really time for the final season of Dead to Me. This is correct. This show has run its course as it debuted at number 4. Also, sorry, but it looks like it's not looking good for Warrior Nun Season 3, even though I know a number of you are really hoping for that. I see fans respond to almost every Netflix tweet with a request for its renewal. It's like, I think, I'm really happy that the Snyder Cut came out. I think that it was the right thing to do, but not everything. And people fail to realize that was a very unique situation, and it was not just a director's cut. It was, the way Zack Snyder was treated. It was that, replacing him with another director who, really, it's complex, and we discussed it quite a bit, and it's just a very unique situation. And so it frustrates me that people think that it can just be replicated with any old content. All right, on iTunes, new releases, but I applaud your enthusiasm though, but I mean on every single tweet. All right, also, by the way, at least the poor social media manager is looking at that stuff. I mean, it's not like the head of Netflix is tweeting it with the account. All right, so anyway, on iTunes, new releases Black Adam, The Woman King, and Lyle Crocodile all made the top 10, with Black Adam at the top as Warner Brothers Discovery continues to now wait to put their new releases on HBO Max, taking a page from Universal's playbook. Black Adam still hasn't reached 400 million worldwide, but it's close. It could squeak by there before Avatar 2 hits, but it's not going to get, I don't even think it'll get to 410, but it might have a 4 in front of it. It might have a 4 in front of it. It was rough, you know. Dwayne Johnson is still acting like it's a huge success, and it's just awkward, and he's still trying to drive the DC train, even though James Gunn and Peter Safran are clearly the new conductors, and you're like, what are you doing? You know, it's like he's got a toy steering wheel, and he wants you to pretend that it's real, and you're like, I don't even know what to say to this. All right, so anyway, also, some of the user reviews for The Woman King were appalling. Just absolutely appalling. And thank goodness Apple at least had the decency to remove the most shockingly offensive. I just cannot believe, I mean, it's very disheartening to think society really has truly not progressed at all. It was horrible to see those comments. I felt very bad for that cast and everybody associated with that film because they just knocked it out of the park. And for them to have to deal with that is tragic. It's bad enough they're not getting career boosts out of it. And then the fact they have to deal with all that hate is just disgusting. The original Knives Out also popped into the top 10 because, fascinatingly, it's not on Netflix. They paid over $400 million for 2 sequels, but it wasn't enough to cover the first film, which Lionsgate still has the rights to. I wonder if at some point it will revert to Netflix. Lionsgate is like, you could still buy us. They have John Wick, and that's about it. But anyway, that's no small dowry. And wow, some of you say movie stars don't exist anymore, and in many ways they don't. But Russell Crowe and Frank Grillo, or is it really the Lamborghini name, but both got people to spend money on what really looks like cheap garbage. I'm sorry, but they look like SNL spoofs of movies rather than actual movies themselves. I watched the trailers for both of those over the weekend because my family was trying to decide what to watch, and I was like, wow. As for this coming week, Hollywood usually hopes you'll feast on leftovers, so they don't usually release any big movies, but I mean, like, nobody wanted to eat this stuff in the first place. So that said, this year, Universal was clairvoyant. They thought ahead, and they were like, we know that's all crap, so we're gonna give you Violent Night, and they're hoping to be a real palate cleanser. And boy, I saw Violent Night. The review embargo lifts on Tuesday, so I can't review it yet, but it is really a shot of whiskey. It is strong. It is strong stuff. I have mixed feelings on it. We'll discuss it in the review, but we'll see. I'm not sure if it can play in theaters all month long or if it gets rushed to digital just in time for Christmas, as Universal tends to do with their lumps of coal. Will Smith will also be testing the waters of his public persona post-slap with Apple TV's Emancipation, directed by Antoine Fuqua. I actually think the trailer for this looked pretty good, but it's hard for Apple TV stuff, particularly movies, to get traction. I really wish they would list them in the charts because nobody knows how this stuff's doing. They are on Nielsen, so hopefully we'll get a little bit of an idea there. And they're really pushing Emancipation. I'm a member of Critics' Choice, and they sent me not 30, but no joke, like 15 screenings I could attend of that film. But I just don't think it's going to connect. I think it's too soon. It's too soon, and he's coming off of a big awards movie. King Richard, by the way, which I adored, which I thought was a phenomenal film. But this is going to be his first really big test to see what's going on with his career right now. And I'm curious to see what happens. We'll see. We'll see. It's getting a very limited release, by the way, in theaters this weekend. Very limited, before hitting Apple TV in a few weeks. And even more awards films open in limited release as well this weekend for qualifying runs. There's Spoiler Alert with Jim Parsons. That actually looks quite touching to me. I saw also some horrible comments on social media in response to this trailer, which I thought was appalling, especially because this is a true story and quite sad about Michael Ausiello. But that to me looks like a streaming movie. I mean, I can't see anybody seeing that in theaters. And then also Women Talking. But if nobody went to see She Said, I don't think they're going to see Women Talking. It's funny, even the titles are kind of the same. As for streaming movies, on Friday, Disney Plus has the animated Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Netflix has the animated A Christmas Carol, another Christmas Carol, as well as the much more adult Lady Chatterley's Lover, based on the classic saucy novel. There's also Robert Downey Jr.'s documentary about his father's last days, very touching. And Hulu has Darby and the Dead. Then with shows on streaming, Lucasfilm will see if they can go beyond Star Wars with Willow starting Wednesday. You all said you loved Willow. Time to pony up. Gossip Girl Season 2 starts Thursday on... This is going to be like Dark Crystal all over again. But anyway, Gossip Girl Season 2 starts Thursday on HBO Max, while Slow Horses inexplicably got a Season 2, which starts Friday on Apple TV. And Gary Oldman on that press tour is just telling everybody he's probably going to retire. They're like, so this is where your career is right now, huh, Gary? And he's like, yeah, I think it's time to retire. He, of course, also stepped in it himself infamously a few years ago. Prime Video also debuts Riches, and Netflix has part 1 of the second and final season. I don't know why they're making such a big deal about it being the final season when there's only been 2 seasons of Firefly Lane. Anyone watching that? Anyone sad that it's over? And that's this week's particularly crazy movie math. Oh boy, what have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what do you make of this Thanksgiving, both in theaters and on streaming? What do you think happened? And what do you think of the long-term lessons going forward for Hollywood? Oh, and be sure to visit the BTT store. And don't forget that 15% off code, which is good through the end of tomorrow, Monday. All right, so share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.